Well, here we are again.
Whew, I tell you, it seemed like we had to hustle a little bit this morning to get here. But here we are. We've got a lot going on with Milton.
Unbelievable.
And nothing happening. Well, I mean, it's pleasantries around here in Southeast Texas. It was very subtle this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed when I opened the back door and I kind of stepped out on the porch, I was like, okay. And then I closed it.
Yeah.
But then when I took Willow out for a walk, when we were moving around the neighborhood, then I was like, okay, I get this. It feels, I could tell the difference a little bit. So it was subtle.
Yeah, so I was watching the dew point this morning, and when the show started, it was like 64. No, when the show started, the dew point was like 64, which was like, okay.
Yeah.
And by the end of the show, it was down to 51.
Now we're talking.
So yeah, I mean, we had a nice little drop.
I think it's still coming in a little bit. With the,
we had a nice
especially
little
with the
drop.
breeze, you can tell the difference.
And humidity, yeah, so it feels really good.
That takes care of all the pleasant talk. Now we have to get into the ugliness of
that's
what's
the extent of the good stuff. Yeah.
With
so
this Milton.
Milton. So there were a lot of records or like near records that were set yesterday. The one that I saw was fastest growth from a tropical depression to a Category 5.
Yeah.
It took 49 hours to go from a tropical depression to a Category 5, and then I know it went from a 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm to 180 miles an hour. That happened in about 30 hours, something. I mean, whatever it is, it was ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. No, because I think it was Sunday morning, 4 a.m. was 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
And then you get to the Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
24 plus some 30. Yeah. It's just a monster. Now, the good news is we're not expecting a Category 5 at landfall.
Let's hope not.
Florida and the Gulf Coast, the U.S. have seen Category 5 landfalls, but right now the plan is not a Category 5. So that's primarily just the wind damage that we're talking about. The storm surge is still going to be devastating, and I think it's going to be one of those to where even a 5 or 10 mile difference in where that eye ends up, right? That's going to make such a huge, and we saw that with Hurricane Ike.
Yep.
Across here in the Houston area,
because remember, like as terrible as it was, if Ike had been just a little bit to the west by like 10 miles
at the most,
it would have been actually way worse for Galveston Bay.
It would have run all up into Galveston Bay.
I had forgotten about that, but you're right.
I think it would have pushed water practically to downtown Houston just through the ship channel. You know.
So, yeah, sometimes it is such a minor difference, and in this case, it's that Tampa Bay area, which you could kind of think about, I guess, as Galveston Bay. It's like
it's a bay.
If the eye moves a little to the north of that, they are in terrible shape. If it moves maybe 20 miles or to the south, or even 10 miles to the south, then they can avoid the worst of it. But this is one of the spots that's going to be at risk. This is a live view from Sarasota, Florida, where in just a moment, by the way, we're going to get an update from Britta Merwin, who
fantastic.
Of course,
we all like Britta.
She's fantastic. Everybody loves Britta. So this is an area that's just south of Tampa, and really, right now, given the current path, this is going to be ground zero potentially if the storm follows the path that it's expected to follow. And this is the latest on Milton. That eye is starting to become visible again.
It kind of got pretty compact.
Yeah, it got. They described it as a pinhole yesterday.
Yeah,
and then it kind of sort of got covered by clouds for a while, and now it's back. So this thing is definitely still a pretty scary looking storm. And here's just another perspective on the visible satellite. You get to see that spinning away there.
One of our astronauts up in space right now, I forget his name, sorry about that, but I just noticed on his X account that he posted a time lapse of flying over this.
Yeah.
And again, it just reminds me with the visible imagery. So I'm gonna have to try to find that and get
the perspective for the perspective from their point of view has to be just crazy. So here's the latest. This is the 10 a.m. advisory. They actually bumped up the winds from 145 to 150. So anything above 156 is considered Cat 5. So we're still pretty darn close to that. And the Hurricane Center really didn't change the path really at all for the 10 a.m. update. They've kept it pretty consistent with the center pointed at Tampa. But like JD and I were just talking, if it shifts just a teensy bit to the north, That'd be very bad for Tampa and St. Petersburg. If it goes a little bit to the south, it'll be a little bit better for them, and then worse for that spot that we just saw over in Sarasota. One good thing is this is not going to do that Helene thing where it floods out, the Carolinas. It's not going to do that.
There will be a lot of rain.
Yeah.
And again, this is the storm surge because here's the storm surge is not going to change much by the wind, by dropping in a category or so.
Exactly.
That's the thing that why we keep focusing on it. And I know in recent years that freshwater flooding has really become quite deadly. But historically speaking, the storm surge is the deadliest threat that a hurricane normally brings. And so that's why this is such a big deal. But the messaging here has been very strong. And with Helene, I think this is a little bit, I think, in a similar scenario of in 2005 when we had Katrina, just blast New Orleans, and then Rita comes rolling in, and everybody was like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be in the Superdome like everybody in Katrina was. And all the evacuations took place, which was probably more that needed to take place, and there was a turn at the last minute and things like that. But it's a similar scenario here where we had Helene. Everybody saw what happened with Helene, and now it gives that encouragement of evacuation. And I wouldn't say that it's going smooth as far as evacuations go, just because they're just a messy process.
Yeah, how is it ever? It's not a fun thing to do.
We can't even get to our jobs here in Houston without having rush hour traffic, right? All the traffic stuff. So you try to get everybody moving out of Florida. There's going to be a mess, but it's good that people are leaving. And I think especially when we look at a storm surge that's expected like this, it's going to be, that Sarasota picture you showed, I'm like, I hope that half of those buildings are still there, right?
I mean,
that's not being over dramatic, right? I mean, that's being realistic, saying that a 12-foot storm surge, I mean, that could just, I remember Bolivar Peninsula again with Hurricane Ike. I mean, you just had sticks that were in the ground of those beach houses that were up off the ground, and it didn't matter. I mean, they were still torn up.
And those houses aren't even on site. First of all, it did look like a very wealthy area, by the way, too. So I'm sure they have some good insurance. But if you would like to see more from what's happening on the ground, we do have a report from our friend Britta from just about that exact spot that we just looked at the from that live camera. She's in Lido Key, which is I looked at. It's a little barrier island that's right across the water from Sarasota. So let's take a look.
This is actually the most beautiful weather that we have experienced across Florida since this past weekend. We've had a lot of rain over this past Saturday and Sunday, and now the final preparation day ahead of Milton, we have beautiful warm sunshine. I'm in Lido Key. It's a barrier island about 4 miles from downtown Sarasota. The problem is Helene. This home, you can see the water line here on their driveway leading up to their garage door. They've marked their water line, Helene. So they had an easy 2.5 feet right within their garage, but this home is actually built up quite substantially. If you follow that 2-foot high water line on the garage door and go down into the street, there easily was 4 feet of water, so just above my waist during Hurricane Helene. This is someone's life. Everything is thrown out on the doorstep, and this is what every street in Lido Key looks like. It's been out here for over a week, so you can see the mold formation on the cabinets. I'm not even going to touch it because this is such a hazard. More mold here on this cabinet. And the problem is we are going to see possibly 15 feet of storm surge with Hurricane Milton. On average, Sarasota saw 4 to 7 feet of storm surge. Best case scenario, we surpass that with Milton. Worst case scenario, 15 feet of water. We'll take all of this and bash it into these homes. That can cause significant exterior damage. And on top of the surge element, we could have wind gusts up to 125 miles per hour. That can loft any of this up into the air and act as a projectile. In fact, the National Weather Service office is very concerned about structural damage because of debris piles and also manufactured home, mobile homes. They could be completely destroyed. But the take home is, this is a real community. These are real people. In fact, on this dresser drawer, you can see the little girl. She wrote her name Caitlin. That's Caitlin's dresser from her bedroom. And that's what this is truly about. This is just one community that represents so many communities across the Gulf Coast of Florida that have already been through a significant hit and now are going to have something that is even more tremendous move in. We will feel the storm surge impacts as early as Wednesday morning. Reporting in Lido Key, Florida, Fox Weather meteorologist Berta Merwin.
All right, so this is the planet's strongest storm so far this year. I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but think about it. There hasn't been another hurricane, typhoon, or anything like that that's hit 180 miles an hour yet. And of course, it is taking aim at Florida.
Hurricane Milton has prompted, of course, mass exodus from Florida. The highways are packed, and Keely Cowan shows us from Tampa International Airport's flights, our options are also dwindling before landfall.
You are looking at the last remaining flights before Tampa International Airport shuts down. Plenty of cancellations on the board, which has frustrated passengers who are trying to get out. PIE in Clearwater is going to close after its last flight today. Orlando International Airport plans to close at 8 a.m. on Wednesday, and Sarasota, they're going to close at 4 this afternoon. Now, Tampa International will reopen as soon as it's safe to do so, but that's after a damage assessment, so no set timeline on that. You are urged to contact your airline if this is going to impact an upcoming flight. Several delayed flights yesterday caused big backups here, some of those flights not taking off until 1 this morning. That led to a panic of passengers who ended up opting for rental cars instead. They waited in long lines to try to drive themselves to other airports in the state. They'll be in good company evacuating the Bay Area by road. As people heed the evacuation warnings, interstates have seen major slowdowns, and at some points traffic has been at a dead stop. FDOT is allowing the use of emergency shoulder lanes in some parts of the state. That includes along I-4 and 75. Interstate tolls are also suspended, and the roads are crowded. Many gas stations crowded, and they had long lines stretching down the blocks yesterday. At Tampa International Airport, Kelly Cowan reporting.
I'm really glad that she made mention about that use of the shoulder being used as a lane, because TxDOT has done that here in the Houston area. On the major evacuation routes, there's certain, if you'll notice on the shoulder, there's like a hurricane emblem. And that is a path that's been prepared. It's been already planned out. They call it the evac lane. And basically that right shoulder becomes a lane. They've gone through from here, I think it's all the way to 71 in Columbus on I-10. I know, I just happen to know that one because I've driven it recently. But on I-10, if you're going to the west towards San Antonio, from here to Columbus, they open that shoulder up. They've gone through, they've widened all the bridges, so it's not like you're on the shoulder and then you gotta try to get back in or whatever. They've widened all the bridges so that shoulder is consistent, and they keep it all the way open again from here to, I think it's 71, and then I think they've done that as well on some of the other major evacuation routes. You should always get a chance to kind of preview, look over some of those evac routes in case you ever have to get in one. But I'm glad they mentioned them in that story, because TxDOT's been working on that too.
I did not know that. I mean, I know about like the contraflow plans and stuff like that, but I didn't know that they had set up. Hopefully people would cooperate with that, you know,
but again, they open it up, and the law enforcement are going to let you do that and stuff like that. The contraflow is just I've talked to the TxDOT people about that process, and that is a last resort.
Yeah,
it's a huge undertaking, and it really it prevents needed supplies from coming in even during the evacuation. So not that it won't ever be done, but they're only going to break that out at certain situations.
Totally last resort. All right. Well, we want to transition back to Helene, because that's the other big story here. Is not just Milton's a huge hurricane, but Helene just hit a couple of weeks ago.
And there's so much recovery still happening.
Yeah, and it's still, as Britta showed you, it's a mess. So the death toll from Helene is now well over 200 people. Latest number I saw was 230. And this grim statistic comes as pressure mounts on Congress to approve more money for FEMA.
Yeah, and this agency they're still trying to sort of catch up, because there's been a lot of disasters, obviously, that they've been dealing with this year. So Fox's Chad Pergam gives us a report.
FEMA has money to tackle Helene, but the severity of the storm is bleeding FEMA's coffers dry. That worries Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
The hurricane season runs through November 30th. The storm may alter the congressional calculus for disaster relief. While Congress is expected to reload FEMA just before Christmas, it may need to pass a bill as soon as lawmakers return to Washington in mid-November.
It will take some time to tabulate this storm. It's one of the biggest in our history, of course.
Lawmakers representing devastated areas demand action now.
I'm more than willing to come back tomorrow from a legislative standpoint to make certain that we have the funding appropriated and ready to go.
The price tag for Helene could be massive, but some lawmakers believe the storm gives Congress an opportunity to recalibrate priorities.
We give $20 billion a year to FEMA, and unfortunately they have drained everything dry with all the illegal aliens coming in. We spent $200 billion in Ukraine. We spend $2,500 a month on all illegal aliens.
However, there are different accounts for FEMA's disaster fund and the migrant crisis. DHS says it was, quote, false. The agency diverted hurricane money. The White House accused Republicans of using the storm to divide people before the election. On Capitol Hill, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
So, as you know, everybody loves country music icon Dolly Parton, and she's donating her own money for Hurricane Helene relief. $1 million headed toward those affected by the deadly storm. She made the announcement at a Walmart event in Bentonville, Arkansas last Friday. Dolly, who's a native of eastern Tennessee, told the crowd that the mountains in her area home have really been affected.
And in addition, to her own funds, the Walmart Foundation is committing to $10 million in the relief efforts. So glad we're able to kind of get those resources, continuing to prepare and help Helene. And now, you know, with FEMA having to sort of find some more money, they're going to need some Milton money in there. Mm-hmm. And I think we're all going to need to be thinking about those folks in Florida as well after Milton makes their landfall, and there's going to be more relief efforts underway. Yep,
no doubt. Well, with Milton having intensified, gotten so strong so fast, meteorologist Ramisha Shade took a look back at how that compared to the Hurricane Rita intensification, and after the break, she's going to give us a look.
Fox 26 is your Gulf Coast Weather Authority. And while our area is vast,
this storm could bring widespread flooding and dangerous winds to our entire...
Our forecasting zeroes in.
These storm cells over the ship channel are particularly dangerous.
From your community.
Memorial Park is getting hammered right now with heavy downpours.
Right down to your neighborhood streets.
We're starting to see the water rise along Buffalo Bayou.
It's hyper-local coverage from your Gulf Coast Weather Authority. Only on Fox 26. Fox 26 News at 9. Our breaking bond reports hold judges accountable.
A 20-year-old charged with manslaughter.
The News Edge at 10. Your clues help find the missing.
Her son never made it to his
investigations that get results. Weeknights on Fox 26. Engaging and shareable. Visit the Fox 26 Houston Facebook page. Need a legal question answered? Fox 26 legal expert Chris Tritico can help.
But this may be a pretty sizable claim that your sister has.
Just send your legal questions to Fox26Law at Fox.com. Then tune into Houston's morning show every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. to hear your questions answered. The news doesn't stop on weekends.
We're learning more details about a story we first brought you yesterday morning.
And neither do we.
But as we head throughout the afternoon, that's when the rain starts moving in from the southwest.
Fox 26 Morning News Weekends with Denise Middleton.
Well, now to a story you'll see only on Fox. The family of a beloved bartender in North.
And meteorologist Allison Gargaro.
Right now, we are seeing some of the heaviest rain start to push off to our
Fox 26 Morning News Weekends, Saturdays and Sundays beginning at 5 a.m.
The Fox 26 Weather app with more features in one easy-to-use screen. Current weather at a glance, high-resolution interactive radar, severe weather alerts, video forecasts, and much more. It's the power of your Gulf Coast Weather Authority in the palm of your hand. The Fox 26 Weather app. Download it today.
The Fox 26 YouTube page, your home for the best Fox 26 has to offer. The latest news.
Good evening, I'm Caroline Collins. Topping the rundown.
Our most popular local programs like the Isaiah Factor Uncensored.
Why the hell are so many people burned out?
And stories you may have missed from series like Breaking Bond.
The quicker we get a grasp on what's happening.
Sullivan Smart Sense and The Missing.
Please pick up the phone and call the police. Remember, you can remain anonymous.
The Fox 26 YouTube page. Like and subscribe today.
I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. We've got a very powerful hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, and the big story with this hurricane is just how extremely fast it strengthened. It's called rapid intensification. Just around 4 a.m. on Sunday, it wasn't even a hurricane. It had winds around 50 miles per hour, so it was tropical storm Milton. But by 4 a.m. Monday, it had rapidly strengthened to a 100 mile per hour Category 2 hurricane, and by Monday afternoon, it had blown up all the way to a Category 5 hurricane with 180 mile per hour winds. So this is certainly a dangerous system, and unfortunately it is making a beeline towards the Florida Peninsula, likely around the Tampa Bay area. So it is one that we are monitoring closely because it could bring widespread devastating impacts to Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, Bradenton, Sarasota, even over into Orlando after that first landfall. It's also a historic hurricane. I want to compare it to Hurricane Rita. Many of you that have lived in Southeast Texas, Houston, the Beaumont area for the last several years can remember the big impacts from Hurricane Rita, which happened not too far from Katrina. It happened in 2005, and it actually peaked in that intensity on September 22nd. So before Milton came along, Hurricane Rita went down in the history books as the strongest hurricane ever recorded in the Gulf of Mexico. But on Tuesday afternoon, Hurricane Milton also strengthened to 180 miles per hour. So that kind of ties Rita. So they are both now the strongest hurricanes ever recorded in the Gulf of Mexico. So history being made with Hurricane Milton. Now, speaking of Category 5 hurricanes, how often do we have Category 5 hurricanes hit the U.S. mainland? Well, we've only had 4 U.S. mainland landfalls of Category 5 hurricanes since history books have been keeping records, since about 1851, I believe. So we've had the Labor Day hurricane in 1935. That was before we started giving the hurricanes names, so it's just known as the Labor Day hurricane, but it caused massive devastation. Camille was a hurricane that reached Category 5 status back in 1969. That one caused a lot of damage, especially up around Mississippi. South Florida will not forget Hurricane Andrew back in 1992 caused widespread destruction and devastation. And most recently, we had Hurricane Michael make landfall as a Category 5 hurricane right around the Florida Panhandle, and that was back in October of 2018. So if Milton did maintain that Category 5 strength and make landfall in Florida as a Cat 5, that would be the 5th time we've had a U.S. mainland landfall since about 1851. So this is pretty rare. This is pretty historic. The good news, though, is that the models do have Milton weakening to either a Category 4 or strong Category 3 before that Wednesday night, early Thursday landfall, likely around Tampa Bay. Even if it weakens, though, to a Category 3, that is still a major hurricane. Now I want to talk about the hurricane wind scale, the Saffir-Simpson scale. This doesn't really take into account the threats you get from storm surge or from several inches of rain that could lead to flash flooding, but this talks about the threats that you get just from all of that wind coming in with a hurricane. And notice a Category 5, that is catastrophic damage potentially with those wind speeds around 157 miles per hour or greater. So when you're talking about the Saffir-Simpson scale, even as a Category 2, 96 to 110 mile per hour winds, that's extensive damage. But we're going to keep going up the ladder. Category 3, devastating damage. Category 4, catastrophic damage. If Milton were to hit Tampa Bay as a Category 5, of course, that would be extreme winds, catastrophic damage, and basically you can have small buildings just completely get blown away. Trees blown down, cars taking in a lot of damage, and of course those homes right along the coastline are going to take extreme amounts of wind damage, lots of power outages. So this is definitely not a good scenario. It is going to be a very big impact for Florida. What about storm surge? That's that big wall of water that rises up when this hurricane is pushing in and making landfall that can completely inundate some of those homes right along the coast. And we're talking about storm surge levels greater than 9 feet, likely for Tampa, Sarasota, Inglewood, Fort Myers, maybe 12 feet or higher. So this is super dangerous. Here's our graphic showing what can happen in storm surge. You have the normal sea level, but then you have that water coming in from the ocean, the wind blowing that wall of water towards these homes and businesses. And that water can get up to 12 feet or even higher. And in fact, that is what the forecast is calling for the Tampa Bay area, for St. Petersburg, for Sarasota. So these are some of the areas that could end up looking like this, with some of those homes completely inundated with water and completely underwater. So if you are in the path of this hurricane, you definitely need to try to get out of the way. Get moving when a storm threatens. Try to protect your home before you leave. Cover those windows, secure doors and loose items. Determine sheltering options and consider your pets. Ready your go bag, meds and supplies. Charge your phone, fill up and charge your vehicle. Help your neighbors, especially the elderly and other vulnerable people.
Fox 26 is your Gulf Coast Weather Authority. And while our area is vast,
this storm could bring widespread flooding and dangerous winds to our entire...
Our forecasting zeroes in.
These storm cells over the ship channel are particularly dangerous.
From your community.
Memorial Park is getting hammered right now with heavy downpours.
Right down to your neighborhood streets.
We're starting to see the water rise along Buffalo Bayou.
It's hyper-local coverage from your Gulf Coast Weather Authority. Only on Fox 26. Fox 26 News at 9. Our breaking bond reports hold judges accountable.
A 20-year-old charged with manslaughter.
The News Edge at 10. Your clues help find the missing.
Her son never made it to his
Investigations that get results. Weeknights on Fox 26. Engaging and shareable. Visit the Fox 26 Houston Facebook page. Need a legal question answered? Fox 26 legal expert Chris Tritico can help.
But this may be a pretty sizable claim that your sister has.
Just send your legal questions to fox26law@fox.com. Then tune into Houston's morning show every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. to hear your questions answered. The news doesn't stop on weekends.
We're learning more details about a story we first brought you yesterday morning.
And neither do we.
As we head throughout the afternoon, that's when the rain starts moving in from the southwest.
Fox 26 Morning News Weekends with Denise Middleton.
Well, now to a story you'll see only on Fox. The family of a beloved bartender in North...
And meteorologist Allison Gargaro.
Right now, we are seeing some of the heaviest rain start to push off to our...
Fox 26 Morning News Weekends, Saturdays and Sundays beginning at 5 a.m.
The Fox 26 Weather app with more features in one easy-to-use screen. Current weather at a glance, high-resolution interactive radar, severe weather alerts, video forecasts, and much more. It's the power of your Gulf Coast Weather Authority in the palm of your hand. The Fox 26 Weather app. Download it today.
The Fox 26 YouTube page, your home for the best Fox 26 has to offer. The latest news.
Good evening, I'm Caroline Collins. Topping the rundown.
Our most popular local programs like the Isaiah Factor Uncensored.
Why the hell are so many people burned out?
And stories you may have missed from series like Breaking Bond.
The quicker we get a grasp on what's happening.
Sullivan Smart Sense and The Missing.
Please pick up the phone and call the police. Remember, you can remain anonymous.
The Fox 26 YouTube page. Like and subscribe today.